What you see is my two attempts to duplicate what Norm did. I certainly do appreciate his guidance in this. Okay, if you go back to that other one, you'll see that there are two individual pieces here. And the one here is solid walnut, and it's hollowed out. It's got some nice figuring on the side that you can see the striping on it, but yet the idea of it's just simple. It does have the nice, just takes off the lid. This one here, though, is I take all my little pieces left over in the shop and I make acorns. And so I grabbed a long piece of what my acorn material would be. And in this case, it's got every kind of wood you can think of in it. That is the Purple Heart, walnut, outside, close to the outside of the tree, walnut, the white wood, and even some, I don't know, it might even be some cherry mixed in that. But I was curious, one, I just wanted to practice, but I must admit it, nice little pop comes off of it, and it lines up very nicely. And so I was pleased with these.
Oh, I like them. I think that finial on the right gets a nice touch.
Trying to get a little bit more involved with the finials.
The finial and the combination of wood, I think, works really well.
Thank you.
One thing I would mention is the dome on the left is a little bit off. You might want to stare at that curve and step back a little bit. Were you afraid of emptying out the top?
Always afraid of emptying out the top or emptying out the bottom. So yes, I can see where you're kind of talking a little bit more of a flatness.
It's a little abrupt at the top. Yeah, just a little.
Yes. Forgot where the actual center was.
Right. All right. Nicely done.
Thank you. And the finish on those is just really simple wipe on polyurethane.
All right.
Not on the rim, right?
Say what?
Not on the rim.
Yep. On the rim.
Oh, watch out for that. That'll mess you up.
How many coats did you use?
It's probably about 5, sanding in between them.
Generally, if you're going to use any kind of a thick finish, don't do that in that shoulder, just the shoulder.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Being that this one is so loose, it had no effect on this one whatsoever.
Gotcha.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh. All righty. I just called this box frenzy because I went crazy after I was also taking at the same time some of Cindy Drozda's box classes that she was offering. It was just kind of fun. So I just threw everything in there together. The top was the last box that was done in that class, was with a finial. That's a spalted tamarin. I haven't finished that. There's no finish on that yet. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm thinking about just putting a clear finish on it, to be honest with you.
Is that a cross grain box?
Yes. Yeah. Just got a little ledge on the inside. You can't really see it up at the top. You can see a little bit of a line, but that lid just sits on there. It's very loose.
Right.
And And then the grouping down at the bottom was just different capsule boxes, another little finial box with that Spectraply inlay, which I wasn't sure was going to work, but I figured I'd try it and see, and it turned out okay. There's a little button bottom on it as well that I didn't get a picture of, that's of Spectraply as well. And then that walking box in the back there was just kind of an experiment of playing around with just a little bit the design stuff. So just kind of fun to do.
Very nice.
Variety of wood. So used, go ahead. Question?
Oh, no, I was gonna say, I love the Spectraply inlay. And then the walking box reminds me a little bit of, what's her name?
Rebecca DeGroot.
Yeah, that's kind of where I got that idea. I've seen a lot of her work, and I was just sitting there playing around. Really, what I was curious about was how to approach making the little bumps on the side of the box, on the box bottom, to attach the legs to. And I happened to be seeing a video of Michael Huslak, and he kind of explained how he did it. So I just gave it a try, and that was the result there. So they're kind of fun.
Very cool.
You don't put them on, you just take
what's the
everything else
diameter of
off.
the top one?
Sorry. Yeah. So what was the question about diameter?
What's the diameter, the top one, the overall diameter of that?
It's about 3 inches,
Okay.
4 inches. I don't have it here in front of me. Oh, wait a minute, I do.
That's all right. That's just an
Yeah,
approximate.
it's about 4 inches.
Okay.
Bob, I'd be very tempted to finish that spalted tamarin with 1 or 2 coats of the water-based urethane. It's going to dry down crystal clear and not mess up the colors of that wood, that really white wood.
Okay, worth a shot. I've never used the water base.
What's the finial on that box made out of? What wood is that?
It's an ebony, Daniel.
It's an ebony.
Yeah.
All right. You use it quite often, and I really like it. I wasn't sure if it was a wood that was.
It's a great wood for finials because it's a real straight grain. It's good for turning details and whatnot. So I like it a lot. I use that maple that I dye.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were dyeing it because I know that you've used the India ink before. But where are you getting the ebony?
You know, I'll be honest with you. I've got a bunch of sticks of ebony, and I don't have a clue where I got them. They've been in my shop for years. I just happened to pull them out for this one. So I can't help you there.
Is the lid tapered, or is that a square edge on the lid?
No, it's tapered.
Okay,
You mean on the edge?
yeah,
Yeah, it's tapered. It's
that walking box looks dangerous.
Yeah.
It's called a stabbing box.
The stabbing box, yeah. You don't want it to walk over you. That's
Childproof.
Yeah.
I just second Jeff on the water base
Yeah, I've never tried the
urethane.
water base. I've been thinking about it, but I never have. So maybe this is a good one to try on. So
Yeah, I use General Finishes High Performance, and I think it does a really good job.
what's the other one? There's one. Is that Waterlocks? Jeff, did you mention that?
Well, Minwax makes polyacrylic. That's one of the clear ones. And Waterlux also I think makes one, but I've used the Minwax polyacrylic.
So there's a variety of them out there that seem to work. So I'll give it that a try and let you know what happens.
Very, very pretty grain, and the color, I wouldn't want to change that color.
No, that's why I wanted to put a clear finish on it. The more I looked at it, I thought, I don't want it to turn yellow or try not to anyway.
And practice a little bit. I've had my best luck with foam brushes with
Okay.
the polyacrylic stuff or the general finishes. And one stroke, it's going to look a little foamy. Quit. The bubbles will break. The more you
All
work
right.
it,
Yeah. Just one and done. Yeah.
one and done.
Just one thing,
Good. Thanks, Jeff.
on the cross grain boxes, you can do,
Yes.
it opens a lot of opportunity, and at 3 inches, I bet you're perfectly fine. But if anyone else is going to try a cross grain box, once you get over 4 inches, A, that wood better be damn dry, and B, even if it is, the lid will probably not fit in 6 months, because that basically is all the wood movement is going to work on your fit. Fight your fit.
Yeah. That's a good point. Good point.
Yeah, I've found with the cross grain boxes and a cross grain lid that it basically fits in one orientation, but it doesn't fit in the other orientation,
Hopefully.
All right.
meaning it's distorted a little bit. It's a little longer in one dimension than the other.
Yeah, that's a good point, Terry.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how this sits on the shelf and for how long. And
Oh, at 3 inches,
So
it'll
the
be
sooner you
fine.
get that,
yeah,
the sooner you get the finish on it, the better it'll be.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, nicely done.
All right. Thanks.
Daniel,
Hey, so these are my first submissions to show and share or show and tell. I forget what it's called. My kids have show and share at school. And I was super inspired after Norm's presentation, and I went into the garage literally the next day and I turned this box. It's about 3 inches tall, maybe 2.5 inches, so 2 3/4 wide. I think it's either sycamore or pecan. I can't remember. I had the blank label, but I can't remember now. So if anyone can recognize it, let me know.
I bet it's sycamore.
You think it's sycamore?
It's pecan.
Is it pecan?
Yeah, the coloring is so.
Yeah,
common.
Okay.
I'm going with pecan as well.
I meant hickory, not sycamore. It looked like hickory to me.
Yeah, it's not hickory. So if you're saying it's pecan, then that's what it is. So it smelled really nice while I was turning it too, which is always nice. And I think the lid fit pretty well. I got that pop finish that we were looking for. Yeah, so then the day or two later, I went back and I have one more that is submitted, and it's the same wood. It's the other half of the blank. And I thought the first one was a little bit hard to open in terms of, just sizing. I thought it would be nice to put a little knob on top. And as I was doing that, I said, let me balance it out with the foot. So I came up with this.
Very nice.
nice proportions. And what finish is on there?
I've been really enjoying using the Mylan's high friction high build polish. So I usually just sand. I'll hit it with the Axe sanding paste, which Norm introduced me to do, and then I'll just use the Mylan's friction polish on it.
For something small, that works.
Yeah.
So
I find that a lot of times if I do a larger piece and I'm using like white bomb poly or general finishes, wood bowl finish, it doesn't have a silky smooth feel to it after it's applied, no matter how many coats I put on. And I usually put a box over it so that there's no dust that gets on it. But I'm kind of happy with a couple of finishes.
So one comment on form, and you can take this for what it's worth, but I think both on the top and at the bottom, I think at the foot, I would have continued that curve down and made that just a little bit thinner. And certainly on the knob on the top, again, I think you could have just reduced that diameter. It kind of gives it it takes some of the bulk out of it, certainly on the top. And again, you have to balance that with how fragile it gets, but it's got it's got such good lines on the curves, but they kind of the transition between your finial or the knob on the top and the curve on the top, and to me could use a little bit of experimenting, but other than that, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
nicely
and
done.
I think that's a valid criticism. I wasn't intending originally to put a foot on it. It just, I was kind of just going with, you know, however the turning where it was taking me. And it's the first time that I put a knob on top of something. So I agree that it could be a little bit thinner on the stem of it. And
Well,
so,
congrats for going for it. That's
Yeah,
the
no.
kind of thing you want to do, is take a stab at stuff like that.
yeah, I figure
To Steve's point on form, so there's a rule that just kind of ends up in my head, is that your foot needs to not only be smaller than your widest part of the body, but it needs to obviously be smaller than the widest part of your body. It doesn't need to be tiny. It just looks weird when it's not smaller than the maximum diameter. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, no, I hear that. And so on this, yeah, I could go smaller on that. So
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to get at, Steve, can you go back to the 2 fit photos, the open boxes? So notice you have a very obvious line, which is okay, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I wanted to point out that in both of your fits, if you look really closely at that photo, your edge is not flat. Your edge is like this.
yeah, I see that.
And that's why you have such a gap. So watch out for that. You want to get dead flat. You want to make sure you're absolutely perpendicular. That one too, you see the little rise right at the edge? Get that
Mhm.
parting tool absolutely perpendicular when you're making that cut.
Okay.
And that'll help with that. The other thing is, because somebody else has done a nice box and they fixed this, you're almost always going to see the line. And it's a judgment thing. If it's too obvious or looks a little too sharp and actually might tear, there are a couple of tricks you can do. One of the things I like to do is, don't make it almost obvious, make it really obvious. Take your skew point and widen it up so that it's clearly a design element. The
Mhm.
other trick is to do that just a tiny bit and then go north of it and south of it and make similar lines.
Got ya.
And somebody else has done that. And what it does is it dresses it up and makes it look like a design element instead of the simple separation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Norm, one thing I tried was using the tailstock to hold the lid on and putting a burn line in that gap.
Yes, and the cuts I mentioned could also have burn lines, so it matches up.
I was gonna say the same thing. I put them together and I put a burn line in the bottom one right next to the joint, and that covers the joint. And then I would put a burn line in the base, right at the base to match it.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, you're doing the accentuate it rather than try to hide it.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you see Ron Patterson's box later on, you'll see a really good approach at that.
Okay,
Well, good job, Daniel. That's,
thanks.
and what I would do is, so just take that shape that you had on this one here, and just take a different piece of wood and do what Norm said, make your base a little smaller, make where it necks down a little narrower, and do the same thing on your knob, and put the two together. You'll really see the aesthetics of the design. And that's the only way sometimes you can do stuff, is to put them side by side and look at them and see, it evokes a different feel.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes little tiny changes can make, it just takes some of the bulk out of it. And
Mhm.
like I said, you make that base a 1/4 inch, less in diameter, and it'll be a whole different feel to it. But good job.
Thanks.
Hey, I've got a quick question on the base or the foot. It looks like there's a little dark ring there. I don't know if it's an optical illusion, but sometimes I get that when I sand, and I don't know why the sandpaper does that, or why my hand makes the sandpaper do it.
It's hard I can't tell, Preston, what's on that one. That could be, if it's pecan, sometimes pecan gets that staining in it, but it's hard to know.
Are you talking on the foot or above the foot?
Yeah,
The top of the foot, this
the top
sharp
of the
curve.
foot. Yeah.
Part of it is because that all the grain there is vertical because that curve is so sharp. So it's tougher to sand. You might have burned it while sanding.
Yeah, that's possible.
Either that or it absorbed a little more finish and looked darker.
That'll do it too, yeah. Because it's more
Yeah.
open grain, all sitting up.
Oh,
And
yeah,
the
that's a
trick
good
to-
idea. Thank you for the
trick to
feedback.
stopping that is to go one extra grit or two on that end grain so it won't soak up so much finish.
The other thing I do sometimes is sand it with one grit in the reverse direction. And that helps.
I don't have reverse on my lathe, so I'm kind of limited there.
Okay, just a,
Just
Okay,
stand on the
I'm
other.
your lathe.
I knew Jim was gonna say that. Go stand on the other side.
How'd you know that?
I
Well,
knew
you know, so I had the spindle bearings on my lathe a couple of months ago and got really frustrated while doing it, and kind of turned to my wife and I said, now is the time for me to buy a new one. And she said, do whatever you want to do. She gave me like carte blanche to go buy a lathe, and then I cheaped out on it.
Dude, that's a trap. Don't do it.
How do you spell robust? Jim, you know, were you drunk? Were you drunk when you made these, or
This is what happens. This is what happens when you accentuate the crack. And this is turned on 2 centers. The one on the right is maple. These are both the same, and I had a hard time showing the inside and outside, so I just put them together. The one on the right side is maple, the other one is camphor, and it's kind of interesting. It's just simple box turned on two centers. I have to tell you, the one on the left is camphor, and I turned that in Ohio at a woodcraft store. And you're usually back in a corner where nobody knows where you're at, and you do it on a Saturday as a promotion for them. And so I thought, I'd never turned camphor before, but I thought that's kind of interesting. I'd take this wood, it kind of smells a little, and turn that. Well, by about 10 o'clock, they had the front door open, propped open, and by noon, they had the shipping dock open and fans. Everybody walked in and said, what's that smell? And anyway, it smells just like camphor, just like Vicks, and nothing special, just a fun way of doing things.
Those are very unique, Joe. I mean, I sat there looking at this morning as I was doing the gallery, the album, and it's like, you know, I eventually figured out where the axes were, but boy, it took me, I had a hard time. That's very unique. I mean,
That's really cool.
I love the one on the left. I mean that, and again, going back to form, I think that the little foot on that one on the left adds to the dual axis because it grounds it
Yeah.
to me. And I think that one is just so cool.
Agree,
Looks like
totally.
they're deflating or melting, which just makes it look cool.
Actually, the bottom, the base, and the top are both on the same axis. The crack in the cavity are on second axis. Turn the other way around. You turn the joint and the cavity first, then you off the axis and turn the top and the base.
Right.
But just on boxes, as a wood turner, you always want boxes that pop. I'll tell you, as a user, if you walk by the box and lift the lid off and want to put something in it, that gets old real quick, putting both hands on the box and cranking on it to hear the pop. You know, if you sell it to somebody that's going to use it, you want to be able to lift the lid and put something in it.
Right.
I've sold boxes, I made a lot of boxes, but now if I'm making it for a symposium or something where I'm doing a show and tell, or some wood turners are gonna want to crank on this and hear the pop, I do it. Other than that, if I make one to sell, I make it so you can lift the lid and use it.
I agree.
Anyway, what's
Well,
next?
Yes. All right, here's your other one.
Just one comment on those, that they were all crooked, you got them wrong. Try again.
What's this?
Oh, okay, try again.
On your leg,
Yeah.
Jim.
Anyway, well, I wasn't gonna submit 3 boxes, but this is made from 2 pieces of wood. Okay? This is about a 3x3 piece of Purple Heart and a 3x3 piece of maple. And then you use the I refined that jig John Beaver made for a bandsaw to cut the radius. And in geometry, if you know the start and the finish of a cut, and you know the height of a cut, you can draw an arc. 3 points will draw an arc anywhere.
Oh, is that
So
the
you draw an arc
wave
on
bowl
what you
jig?
want to cut.
Is that the jig for the wave bowl?
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. That thing really works. It needs a few touches, but anyway, I got this thing so it really works. And you can not only cut a radius, you can duplicate the radius. So this is duplicating a radius 4 times. You take a piece of Purple Heart and you cut it in half on a radius, and do the same thing with the maple, cut it in half with a radius. And I think I got a piece of Yellow Heart sandwich in there just to show it off. But anyway, you glue that back together, turn it over and cut it the other way and glue it back together. And you end up with a piece of Purple Heart with a maple insert in the middle and a piece of Purple Heart, or no, a maple with a Purple Heart insert in it.
Love the
Kind of
eye effect
interesting.
inside the lid.
Yeah, that's,
Iris.
one is turned with the center of the box. There's the center of the block of wood on the bottom. One is turned with the center of the block of wood on top in the Purple Hearts. I left the other piece square so you could see what it looks like in square.
Agree. And the Yellow Heart against the Purple Heart works really well.
Yes.
No, the geometry, yeah, exceptional geometry, Jim, as usual.
Thank you.
It's the how did you do that look. Just
Well, if you know how to use 3 points, especially in wood turning, you can put 3 points on a piece of paper anywhere and connect them the right way, bisect them, and where the 2 bisectors intersect, you can draw an arc through all 3 points. And I use that a lot in different things.
yeah, very nicely done. All right. Ron.
Hi, good evening. This is, well, it's a box that I started out trying to make, originally I was going to make it split in the middle in a kind of utilitarian storage box, so a tight lid pop. And as I got it into shape, I didn't like the overall look of it. And so started thinking about finial and embellishments and stuff like that. But it's cherry at 7.5 inches tall, about 3.5 inches in diameter. Really, out of ebony. That's the first time I've ever really tried to do anything. And Norm was saying where the part is, I intentionally, there you go. So intentionally, try to camouflage the seam, the carving and black acrylic paint, and then some embellishing wax, and then the balance to look out in my eye did a similar treatment on the top there around the penny. So the other thing that was interesting, I don't remember who mentioned it, but maybe it was Jim a minute ago about the tightness of the lid. Originally, this was going to be something I wanted the lid to pop and handle, and then as I kind of changed my mind into this more of a setting box, and I had to modify lid slightly. So this is, as you pull up on the finial, it's just enough friction to feel it, and the bottom doesn't lift. So again, needing 2 hands to take that off would be, I think, a pain to have.
How did you create that texture?
With a Dremel and a little rotary ball tip on it, and you just carve it, squiggle the carves, and then I rough sanded it, and then, like I said, painted it with black, and then the bronze color there is an embellishing wax that you rub on.
So
And it's just
no pattern. You just kind of just randomly created
yes, and no
wow.
pattern.
That's remarkably not uniform, but consistent.
Yep.
I've done on a couple other pieces that
That's really cool.
thanks. Yeah, I've done it on a couple other ones and liked how or not boxes, but other pieces on like a platter rim and stuff. And you just go at it and try to be somewhat consistent in the size and depth of what you're doing, and it works itself out.
It's gorgeous.
That's
quick
really exceptional.
Thank you.
Quick question. You inverted the typical box. I'm just wondering if there was a specific reason why you have it inset instead of overset. You know what I mean? Instead of a lid over a tenon, you have a lid sitting inside of a tenon jumping into the box.
A little bit. So when I first got it into round and parted it off, started working it. I actually started this at a craft center in a class this summer, and had to remove it, and just when I started putting things back on, mixed up the ends I wanted to use. So
Gotcha.
just ended up,
So the top and bottom became what they wanted to be.
Yep.
Gotcha. It looks really nice, and I noticed one thing. You may in the demo I mentioned you generally don't want to cut things in half, which is what you did here. But you balance it out with that finial, so your brain doesn't see it cut in half, and it looks fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And like I said, it started out to be really just a utilitarian box that didn't plan to have finial or anything like that. That's why it was intentionally bisected almost in the middle. And it
That's
changed.
nice. Nicely done. And getting back to your point about the fit and what Jim was saying, what I find is if you're putting finials on boxes, you can't have a tight fit. You're going to break your finial off, because usually it allows you to put a finer finial on if you don't have a really tight fit on your box.
Right.
So I know in Cindy Drozda's class, I mean, she doesn't, the fit, it's not a snap fit typically on the boxes I made in her class. So, but that's nicely done. It's nicely proportioned, and I love the texturing on it. I think that's a really super effect.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, Terry.
Yeah, and unmute myself. So this is, we were talking last time about twice turn boxes. This is a twice turn box. So this is actually started out as a small log about 4 inches in diameter. So the box is about 4 inches high and about 2.5 inches in diameter. So you see the difference between the sapwood and the heartwood there. And I think it's buckthorn, which is a non-native species, but grows pretty wild in North Carolina now. Came out of the woods behind my house. And I was looking for some different shape. So you can actually see by the top there that the pith is still in this thing. It has a pretty tight pith, I've noticed. So I typically just line it up on center, turn it rough, and then throw it away for a while, and then come back and redo it.
Nice. So I'm sorry, is there a finish on there now?
Yeah, there is. It's an oil finish, but I was going for not super shiny. So actually I roughed it up a little bit with a Scotch-Brite pad to take some of the shine off.
Okay. Yeah, love that form. Real nice.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
love the profile.
Yeah, it's kind of, my wife called it the beehive box when I showed it
Yeah.
to her.
Love it.
And I kind of indented the top a little bit, so it's got kind of pseudo finial there, I guess.
No, it works. It really, I love the bottom finishing. I love the top finishing. 2 comments. The line changes just a hair near the top. See it suddenly changed angle right
Yeah.
near the, yeah.
Yep.
You might want to refine that a little bit. The other thing is you have a really sharp edge on the box, but still it's a visible line. You actually, I can see some broken fibers there.
Yes.
That's a case for what I was mentioning with the skew. Go ahead and blow that thing up. I don't mean huge. I mean, make it make it less. Right now you could call it a hairline, which works, except because of the little bit of broken fibers. If you broaden that and basically dent it in just a little bit, you do 2 things. You dress it up and you eliminate the chance of future broken fibers because the edge is not 100% sharp.
Yeah, I had a little trouble. It came out thinner than I wanted because I had some a little chip out there on the edge when I was doing the top. So
Do you have a point tool?
I noticed that curve, and that was part of how I fixed it when I did the top. I couldn't get down quite far enough.
Do you have a 3-point tool, 3-sided?
Yeah.
It's perfect for that. Alan made, I went to an Alan Leland class and we made one of those, and it's basically my go-to tool for stuff like that.
Yeah, I like that tool for, putting in lines and stuff to burn. So that's a good thought.
All right, nicely done. And Terry, I think you got a second one here.
Yeah, so sorry about the photo here. I was out here and I couldn't get my backdrop or anything. So this is just done with my iPhone.
That's an exciting background. I like it.
This is also a twice turned box, and this is basically wormy ash. And so I colored the worm tracks, dug them all out and colored them black. And then the box itself is colored with black and red and yellow trans tint dye. And the inside is India ink. And I had made a box a couple years ago that my daughter and my son-in-law use for putting their wedding bands when they take them off when they're cooking or doing dishes and put them on the box with a lid. So it kind of gave me the idea of actually making a box that would also serve to, be like a ring holder or an earring holder. So this is my first attempt to do that. So that's why the top of the box is concave, that you can actually slip a ring or something on there if you have it sitting by the bedside or wherever you want to do that, in addition to obviously the inside of the box. So I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but it's at least my attempt to try to do something like that.
You know what I really like
it,
about
and
this?
I like the photographic background.
Yeah. The really subtle foot. It's there, but it's tiny and it works on this piece.
Thank you. I did put the foot on there on purpose, but I did keep it small. So yeah, that background is a table I made, and then that's some of the fossil coral from over at the PCS phosphate mine, not too far away from where I am.
Yeah, the grain of that, the sense of grain of that compared and contrasted in direction to the piece, I think works really well.
Thank you. When I applied the color, especially the black, I was actually trying to follow the grain direction, in that kind of circle.
Yep, that's nice. Nicely done.
Thank you.
The India ink on the outside, did you do that after turning or before?
After. So basically, I turned it, got it all done, all sanded up, or mostly sanded up, and not quite, I hadn't taken off the foot yet, and then I applied the India ink on the outside. So if I got it outside of the little spaces, I sanded it back a little bit. And then I went and applied the trans tint dyes to it, which helped on the edges there. I see one little spot there where I'm on the right where I may have gotten knocked off a little bit of the dye on one of the worm tracks.
Very nice.
That's about 4 inches high and about 3 inches in diameter, I think.
Well, it's nice because it wormy, it was probably kind of difficult to get it smooth because, you know, I'm sure it was getting a little bit past its prime. So
Yeah.
good candidate for stabilizing.
Yeah, I thought about that after your thing last week, but I don't have the vacuum chamber and the cactus juice, so this just got turned as best I could.
No, that turned out well. All right, Jerry. Another first post, right, Jerry?
Yes, indeed. First post for me. My daughter is a save the whale kind of person. Save the whales, save the bees, save the sea turtles. And with that in mind, she uses primarily those stainless steel straws. And she just recently had a birthday, and she asked for something to keep her straw from breaking. Has a little honeybee on it. So the challenge with this one was to make a large enough space in the top so that it would fit not too snugly to keep that bee from popping off. This is about 10 inches long, just a fraction over 10 inches long. There is a walnut button in the top that I made to go inside to make sure that the it doesn't work this way, does it? Nah, can't see it. Walnut button in the top, and the tenon that goes down
Back it up a
inside.
little bit, and I think it will focus.
The tenon goes down just far enough that the straw does not rattle around inside, if that makes sense.
All right.
Made of mahogany. I turned the outside with the skew only. The inside was a 1/2-inch drill bit, which is just fit snug for the straw. And I had to scrape the top out until the honeybee would fit inside.
With what?
With a it's the 1/4-inch square high-speed steel that I ground to be slightly offset so I could go along the side and pare off the inside of it.
Gotcha. Why didn't
The
you
top,
just use a larger drill bit? I'm just wondering.
the challenge.
Okay.
The challenge. I wanted to turn it, not drill the whole thing. It's about 1/8 of an inch down to the top.
Very nice.
So that fits, and of course the bottom is slightly thicker. But again, a challenge. I hadn't done anything like that, and it's a different kind of box for me.
Yep.
Oh, mahogany. It's rattle can lacquer. Let me see. There's a little bit of beeswax on the tenon to help the top and bottom fit together smoothly.
Nicely done.
Great idea.
Beautiful piece, and I also thank your daughter, but don't let her talk to mine because I'll have to turn those.
Okay.
Burn lines do a perfect job hiding that joint, dressing it up nicely.
It actually, because I turned it with a skew and I started the part with, or rather I used my skew to undercut it slightly. Because it's mahogany, the grain almost matched up perfectly, but I was getting, it was just a long, smooth piece of wood. So I put the burn lines in to kind of break that line.
Yep.
And tried to get my little ratio 1/3, 2/3 there for top and bottom to make it look a little bit, yeah, more artistic.
Nailed it.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
All right, this is one of mine. I haven't turned a box in, I don't know, 5 years, but after Norm's demo, I had about a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch cube of wormy pecan that I had stabilized. It was an offcut from something else that I had made. And so that's just made this little ring box. And to apologize for the photography here, all I had was my phone when I took this, but it's again, it's about 2.5 inches. And it just has a lid, and I just sold it as a ring box. It is the lid does not fit tight. It fits, it fits in there. It didn't rattle, but and I just as a matter of fact, I had it at a market last weekend, 2 weekends ago, and I just finished it like the day before and had it at the market, and it was the first thing that sold. So, but anyway, this is done with Illuminate. It was stabilized obviously with the cactus juice, and then Illuminate Clear Slow is the resin I used with some pearl colors in there.
I'd like to take up a collection so that we can buy Steve some actual solid wood, because he seems to have a problem.
Yeah, I got a lot of this.
Steve would probably more prefer us to subsidize some of his resin purchases.
Well, wood's cheaper. That's the point.
But you can't sell it.
Yeah.
When you can't get that kind of look with regular wood, though. I'll show you, Steve.
It's
There's cheap and there's inexpensive, and you never want cheap. You always want inexpensive.
So one of the things I learned with casting resins is that if you were to make, and I made a box several years ago with resin, and I made it was too clear, because what happens if you make it too clear, you can see the you can see the tenon on the inside, where the rim of the fits, and so by making it somewhat opaque, it actually looks better because you don't see the inner workings of the box, because you end up with a sharp line where you cut your recess for your lid. So just a word to the wise: if you're using resin on boxes, to don't make them clear, or you end up with and it's a line you look at and say, why is that there? And then also you realize it's the edge of your recess. So so I'll tell you a funny story about this about this wormy wood. So I'm still in contact with Mike Smith fairly often, and every once in a while I get a box at my house. He'll throw a chunk of this really punky, wormy, almost falling apart wood into a flat rate box and send it to me, because he's with a note. I was just thinking about you, figured you could do something with this. It's just, there's some really odd pieces that I get from him, but so anyway, but that's the piece. So
No
right.
worm, no worms in it, right?
No worms. And the thing is, and even if there was, you have to before you stabilize it, it has to be dry. So they go into an oven for at 250 degrees for several hours before I do anything with them. So there isn't any anything alive in it.
So I have not been turning for months. It's work's been keep kicking my butt, and it's too damn hot in my garage. But I finally this weekend got 2 fans going, the garage door open, my wife's hot car outside, and said, I'm gonna do some damn turning. So I took a couple of blanks I had of hickory, which is always a pain in the butt, but sometimes fun wood to work with, and I turned a couple platters.
Sorry, I don't know that one.
Yeah, apparently I said the magic word. So they're under 8 inches. Very simple, but I like the OG form and I practice it whenever I get a chance. So I wasn't necessarily trying to make them identical. They started out with identical size pieces of wood, but didn't quite come out that way. The left one is a little thicker, but I'm happier with the bell shape. The right one is a little bit thinner, but as you can see, that flattened out just a bit on me. I don't know how you guys are with OGs, but I always practice them whenever I get the chance.
When I first saw that picture of him, I thought it was a yo-yo.
Damn big yo-yo at 7 inches. You don't want to miss that catch.
Yeah. You don't have a you don't have anything to give you perspective with it, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice
Nice.
grain on the wood.
Thank you. No finish yet. Just polished.
You say that was pecan or hickory?
Hickory.
Hickory.
That's why when that piece of wood showed up, it was fresh in my mind and it looked like hickory.
Right.
All right, Greg. We didn't get to you last month, so here you are again. I don't know why that's so small. Let's see. Kick it up a little. There we go.
Okay, these are my 3 ring bowls. The one on the right, which is Honduras mahogany. I like the design profile. I'm not as thrilled with the one on the left, and I wanted to get some feedback on that. I have my theories why, in my opinion, the one on the left didn't work as well. In both cases, I used the golden mean, that if you look at the bottom, the middle ring is 5/3 the height of the bottom ring, and the top ring is 5/3 the height of the middle ring. And I think that worked, but the other profiles on the chestnut piece on the left, I was not as happy with. So I have some theories on how to fix that, but I'd appreciate some more experienced design input.
I actually like the left one better. The top ring on the walnut is not quite proportional. It's a little bit too big to my eye. And getting to this, the golden mean, all the math and all that stuff, it's great, but it's a good starting point. You just got to trust your eye in the final analysis. You got to sit there and say, okay, I played by the rules, but something is a little bit off, and fix it by hand. That's my take.
I would like to see, the more detail you put in anything, the more problems can arise.
Yeah, and I think from looking at the one on the right, and I agree with Norm, I think the one on the left is actually more appealing, and I think part of it is the shape of the bead. It appears to be rounder or deeper. I mean, where it goes into the where it comes down in. I don't know. It just no, I think the one on the left is in my eyes more appealing.
My 2 cents. I think I understand the golden rule, but I feel like the height of that bead, meaning the thickness, whatever that is, that's what the width or the thickness, if you're looking at it from the side, should be, as if it was cut in half. Does that make sense? Almost like it was a hula hoop. That's where I'm thinking. Like the one on the right with the walnut, that top bead is really thick, but the depth or the width of it, if you will, thickness is like a tenth of it. Is that a lot of gibberish, or does that make any sense to anybody?
That makes sense.
So the one on the left is more rounded. The the radius of each circle is wider. I mean, sure, I like the grain structure on the one on the left, but you like the shape of the rings on the bigger one on the chestnut one on the left better, is what I'm hearing.
The progression looks more consistent.
Mm-hmm. And by the way,
Okay.
me personally, I don't think either one of them is bad, so I don't mean that in a negative connotation. I think I'm trying to think about proportionally though, like that top bead I think looks great. The second bead looks like it's a little squished, and the bottom bead looks like it's even more squished based on the thickness of that ring.
Yeah, I like the one on the right because the beads are flatter. I think that's more pleasing to me.
So see that
The
you
one,
can't
the
even get
one on the
consensus.
right has a thinner rim. I was, in retrospect, I'm disappointed with the thickness of the rim on the top of the bowl on the chestnut piece on the left.
I can understand that. You know, it'd be interesting, and this is just me brainstorming. I wonder if you could almost like hollow out and match that same profile on the interior.
Good luck with that.
I think you
If
could
you're
do it
off
with
a
a
little
hollowing
bit,
tool.
you're gonna have 3 freestanding rings.
Right, but you know
Three-
what?
three rings.
Hold my beer. Yeah, hold my beer. Once I get my lathe running again, we'll see what we can do.
I think there would be 3 funnels.
Be a
I like
3-ring
that idea
circuit.
though, Mike.
Either way though, Greg, I think they look good. And I like the way that grain is balanced. The one on the left, the one on the right, I love walnut. I'm a big fan of walnut. My problem is just in the picture, I can't see much grain. The one on the left, the way that those growth rings
The
are
one
running,
on the
it just
right
makes it look really
is
interesting.
Honduras mahogany,
Oh, sorry.
probably with Watco finish, which I let dry and then sprayed with Delft lacquer.
Got it.
So here's
I
a
just like
suggestion.
those growth rings.
When you do the third one, because you should do a third one, put those 2 in your line of sight on the other side of the lathe. So you can see what you want to change in each one and avoid doing the same thing that you didn't like the first time. Instead of starting from 0 and trying to do a whole new form. I do that sometimes just to help you replicate a shape or avoid a shape, whatever you want to do.
You know, really, I think if the 2 weren't together, they would be both very good.
Oh, they're
I think
good.
it's the 2 together that makes one look better than the other. I mean, the shape is contrasting. The amount of curve is contrasting. I think this is one that shouldn't have been put together.
All right. Ron.
Okay, thank you.
Back up here, these are 2 prototypes of a cocktail smoker that I made for my brother, who is a bourbon and cocktail guy. I'm more of a beer guy, but they are 2 inches thick on the base and a little dome lid on each, so walnut and maple combination on the left, and a wormy maple and walnut combination on the bottom, on the right. And the concept here is it's the lid is meant to fit loose, but you take the strainer on the right hand side that's there and you fill that with your favorite wood chip, and you hit that with a butane torch after you've set it on your drinks glass, and the coolness of the drink and the ice actually draw smoke down in and fill that headspace with smoke. And you put the lid on, you let it burn out. And There are people that like that flavor of the smoke in their bourbon or in their old fashions or Manhattans. I think these were 2 prototypes I made. He uses them, says they work well. I did a demo of myself, made sure that the chimney effect actually worked and everything like that. So just playing around with something different.
Very nice.
Very cool.
That
Never
is
seen
different.
it.
Wow. I've never
Very
I've never seen
innovative.
it.
Yeah.
That is very
seen
cool.
anything like it.
So,
I just use mezcal.
there you go. Like I said, I don't personally have an application for it in beers that I like, but he really liked it. He
beers.
won a friend of his that they are bourbon drinkers, and they both really like it. So, the question that's yet to be determined is how long that wood basin and chimney will last before, or how many drinks it'll last before it burns through, or gets to a point where it gets burnt away over time. Center.
Well, if the lid starts to catch fire, you've got a drinking problem.
Actually, the lids actually don't. It's the bowl, under the strainer. That, and again, in the testing I did with it before I sent them off, it really doesn't catch fire. It's all about the chips in the basket, that's really burning.
Is that a uniform diameter hole through there, or is the bottom kind of hollowed out a little bit?
So if you go to the other picture, it's a uniform hole down to about that last burn ring.
Okay.
On the bottom. And then it's a much smaller diameter hole. And actually, I've drilled 4 other holes around that are about a 1/4 inch. So that go all the way then through that kind of tenon on the bottom.
Okay.
Where did you get the idea to do this? Have you seen metal ones that you just copied, or what?
So my brother was telling me about it. There's high-end bars and drinking, I guess, clubs and stuff.
Yep.
That do a big similar thing, but with much more elaborate equipment and everything. And I'd seen a guy that had drawn a prototype, and I said, what the heck, I'll try to make it. And my design was a little bit different. He didn't like to get it to flow. I had that tenon there is what I used and drilled through. The one I saw was just a big straight hole through, but it's kind of cool when you do it. Smoke comes out those holes and just slowly billows up and fills that head space. And when you actually take the base of it off the glass, my theory, because of the coolness of the ice in the drink, that smoke just hangs in the glass. It doesn't like fly out all over and disperse.
Are you going to sell them?
I thought about it. He's asked me. He said everybody is showing it to and use it wants one. I just like I said, I've been turning a year and haven't sold anything, and I'm questioning if I want to sell anything, only because I feel like it might be a second job. So
Yes.
I enjoy playing and learning still. So I don't know.
Well, I like an old fashioned. So if the price is right, I'll buy one off you.
Yeah.
Well, in
innovative.
Colorado, I saw the same thing in bars, but they were not using your favorite wood.
Ron,
I'm glad you said it, 'cause that's what I was thinking most people do.
Ron, I was going to ask you really quick. There are 2 pictures of it here. Do you have any additional pictures? Because I like old fashions as well, and I'd be interested in trying to make one of these.
Yeah, I do.
But I'm not understanding the additional holes that you had underneath.
I do. I certainly do. I can do that and share that with you guys.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Also like the knobs you have there.
Yeah, very nice. Are they metal?
They are simply cabinet pulls that I liked in Lowe's hardware section.
Hmm.
And is metal a better option because of the heat generated, or what?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't try.
Okay.
I don't think it really burns long enough after you put the lid on that it generates a ton of heat.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, I I just thought it would be just a different, design texture type thing to use, so.
Yeah.
Cool.
The question I have is, isn't smoky bourbon Scotch?
No,
Yeah, I know. I drink both and I like both. I think this is a great idea. I've never tried it.
Yeah, according to him and his friend that I've given him to, there's a lot of interest in him, so I don't know, maybe it's something.
but seriously, I'm an old fashioned fan. Try a little good mezcal mixed in with it. Gives you a really nice smoky finish.
Right.
Yeah.
And who was it that asked, was that, sorry, I didn't catch the name about the other pictures.
Ron, if you,
I'm Daniel. Ron, I'm gonna look you up on the guild site, and I'm gonna see if I can send you an email so you have my email address.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Might be a future demo.
There you go.
Yeah.
Preston, you're up.
Hey, guys. This is a redo from a previous show and tell where I didn't have the inside cut out, and I couldn't. A couple of things here. The cedar's got such cool grain, and that's a bark inclusion on the bottom left, and you can see it on the bottom right, and the other pictures you can see all the black spider webs. Well, that's actually cracks that were there in the wood that I had to stop and CA glue it and stop, CA glue it, hoping that it wouldn't fall apart or come blowing out. And I didn't use a pressure pot, and the resin, you can see a couple of defects in the resin. One of them is that line down the middle of it, and then there's another bubble trail in it on the top right. You can see it at the right hand part of the resin there next to the sapwood. So this one's about 13 inches by a 4, I think, and really happy that it's finished.
Is the resin in the bark inclusion too?
Yes, yep. Been lots of super glue because it was really soft there.
That's great.
Absolutely beautiful piece.
No, thank you.
And I love the way those grain lines wrap around that bark inclusion.
Yeah.
Glad it held together for you. Looks really cool.
Mhm.
Very cool.
Is Steve still here, or did we lose him?
I'm here.
Oh, Steve, what do you think about resin and cedar? Do you think that's going to hold up over time? It's a curious choice.
Well, I'll tell you what concerns me.
Looks
is
great.
I don't think there's a problem with the resin as far as hearing, but cedar moves so much that I worry about if it moves, whether the resin will delaminate from there. So I'm just not sure. It may, but this actually would have been a good candidate to stabilize the piece before you did it, and you would have all those micro cracks and everything wouldn't have been an issue. But
Right.
again, it's another whole process, and it only makes sense to do it if you have a really spectacular piece of wood like this. So because you're going to put $20 worth of cactus juice into it, but it's it probably would have alleviated a lot of the frustrations you had turning this with those micro cracks, and it would have firmed up the bark inclusion. And stuff on it. But what's the diameter of this?
About 13. So I would have had to maybe just paint the cactus juice on like Mike does, but because I don't have anything that big.
Yeah, I have a 16-inch.
Okay.
I don't use that often, but when I have something I want to do. But yeah, this would have been a good candidate to stabilize.
I think it came out gorgeous.
No,
it's
beautiful. No, and the color you chose. It worked out well.
Kudos on the photography too. The photography's great.
Yeah.
Now, whatever you do, keep this puppy out of the sun.
Yeah.
A, because cedar, and B, because it'll move more in the sun.
And I don't want it to turn brown either, right?
Yep.
Steve, after the fact, is there any way to put the cactus juice in it and then sand it out, or?
Not at this point. I mean, when I do vacuum stabilization, I do it in a bowl. I do it after I rough out the bowl, because otherwise you're turning away many dollars worth of cactus juice. But after it's finished like this, and you have, once you cast that resin into it, you can't then go back, because you have to bake the cactus juice at 200 degrees, and it's gonna distort it and stuff. So you wouldn't. There's really no way to do it.
I bet the resin wouldn't like that heat either.
Yep.
No.
Yeah, this is a piece of maple crotch. You can see all the feather flames there in the bottom, and it had I think that was a limb or knot that came out. That I put the blue, I think it's the same blue as in the cedar mica powder in the resin. And those it got pretty thin, and those barks were sort of like saw blades on my knuckles. But I'm not a very fast learner. Oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurt.
Oh, that still hurts.
Well, I gotta say though, the end result's worth it. That's a showpiece. That's a showpiece in my opinion. That's big dollar. That's big money.
Well, thank you guys.
How come there isn't red in the bark?
Yeah, that's the finish.
Yeah.
I love the shimmer in that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a special finish I put on it. Yeah. Organic finish, right?
And then the fact that you got that bark to stay on there is, that's really, that's nice. And, when you have a natural edge like that, the challenge is to make it a consistent thickness. And it looks like you've achieved that. I mean, because if it stands out, it just jumps out if it's not the same thickness throughout. So
it's gradually getting thicker toward the bottom, but you have to measure it.
Right.
No,
yeah, but you cleared the wave. That's the tough part.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The edge is what you see, and that looks perfect.
Yeah, it's about a 16th at the edge. In some places, in other places, it's a little thicker, just due to the not being spherical, the way the edge of the log was, right?
That bottom left picture is what nails it, and just those curves, the thickness of that lip, it looks great.
Well, thank you guys. I'm real happy with it.
Getting damn good at this.
Uh-oh, here it comes.
Here it comes, yeah. Wow.
This is 60 hours worth of work. Segmented, hard maple. Yeah, this is where Norm says, "What, you don't like turning?" Yeah, this is so it's, what do you call it? Segmented, 16 segments per ring, 10 rings, and then all indexed, burned, all that kind of fun stuff. And then sitting in the recliner I'm sitting now, just coloring squares, passing time. So I think overall it's about 14 in diameter and 9.5 tall.
So point out for us where the
Excuse me,
segments
that's
are.
a lot more than 10 rings.
Wow.
Well, yeah, if they were individually, if each of those lines were a ring, sure, but the segments.
Where can you help
Was there a
point out
question?
where
I'm
the
sorry.
segments lie?
So if it's 9 inches tall finished, but it was, each of those rings was just shy of an inch. So I took some off the top, took a little bit off the bottom. So I would say 3/4 from the top, and then 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, all the way down. Luckily, you can't really tell. I mean, once you put
Right, no, not at all.
the index on it and you burn the lines and all that, you can't even tell where the segments are.
So
What coloration do you use?
What's that? I'm sorry.
The colors, what, you use colored pens, alcohol, or what?
I thought they were India ink, but then I don't want to say something if I don't know it's true. So they're Faber Castle, and they're
Faber
called,
Castle, yeah, okay.
yep, they're the Artist Pitt, Pitt pens, and I think they're India ink, but I know they don't bleed, which is nice about them. So I'm really not sure exactly what it is, but I think it's India.
Great, good, thank you.
So
Did
why
you,
segmented if you're gonna do the weave? That's what I'm not understanding.
Because I can't find a piece of wood that big and dry enough to turn, and I'm impatient. So, if I found a piece that big, I got to deal with the pith, then it's gonna bend on me and distort and all that kind of fun stuff. So,
Makes
and
perfect
plus,
sense.
Norm, I hate turning. It's evidence that I just break my lathe because I don't feel like turning. Sure.
Well, I'm
with the
guessing
segmented
segmenting wasn't the long
pieces-
time part, wasn't the lion's share of that work.
No, the lion's share, I started my timer just out of curiosity on my phone, and I was burning the lines on the indexing on the lathe while I was on the lathe. So I put the burn pen into my Trent Bosch stabilizer as if it was a tool, you know what I mean? Like the hook tool, because I know that I can keep center with that. And then I burn the lines using that. And anyways, I started the timer, and it took me, I think it was like a minute and I don't know, 28 seconds or something like that per line. And then I did the math, and I was like, hot damn, that's a long time just to stand there and burn lines.
I would think that the segmented sections would have eliminated any end grain in the bowl.
Yeah.
That helps with all of your lines that you had to put in, I would think. Makes it consistent.
Yep, on the beading side especially, because when you're doing those beads, those 1/8 beads, and then you hit that end grain, you get some tear out and you don't, and you tear out. And you can't sand it afterwards because then you'll have flat beads. So that's a great point. That wasn't my intent. It was just I didn't have a piece of wood that big and I wasn't willing to wait for something to dry, but that's a great point.
I just say that, hot damn, that's a beautiful piece.
Thank you.
So you turned the beads and then burned the grooves?
Yeah, so there's a lot of cool videos. I'm a newbie to it compared to, there's a bunch of great guys that do incredible patterns. Oh my God. But so I built the segmented piece, turned the piece, and then beaded the outside with the D-Way beading tool. And then once I beaded it, you could do one of two things. You can get your indexing wheel set up, and then you can draw your lines with a pencil and like a little jig, and then sit in like a recliner with a burn pen and just burn them individually. Or I tried something different and just attached the pen to that Trent Bosch stabilizer and burned it directly on the lathe to get perfectly straight lines. That's the way you build those beads or make it look like the basket illusion.
Wow.
That's spectacular, both your pieces, but
Thank you.
well done.
I'm addicted. I'm working on one now. Can't wait for my lathe to get fixed because I can make another one.
You want to talk about this one?
All right. Yeah, that's kind of the next one.
Just looking at the inside there, did you use the India ink inside?
No, I did around on the other previous picture. On that one, I did do the India ink around the inside of the rim, so it looks like it, but there's no coloring at all on the inside. Actually, I thought about taking my laser and engraving on the very inside the bottom made you look. So if you looked inside there, you could see something funny. But this one, so we went on vacation, which is another reason why I didn't turn anything, and I didn't get a chance to make a box this past week for Norm. But I turned this out of pecan that I had laying around right before vacation. So I turned it, beaded it, burnt it, and then I just, while I was on vacation during our downtime, I just sat there and brought my pens with me and I just colored. So I ended up giving it to my wife's brother and his family because they orchestrated the trip. I mean, they did all the planning and did a lot of the driving and all that stuff. So while I was sitting there coloring at the end of the trip, I gave it to them. That's why I didn't do any like really professional photos on it. But pecan, I wouldn't recommend if you're going to try doing the basket illusion. It doesn't come out clean. The tear out, if you zoom in the picture, you can tell. But it doesn't matter. It's still a cool piece, and I hope they like it.
That's a great piece.
I see different patterns the more I look at it. Like it looks like you've got propellers going curved on it with the yellow.
Yeah, I did the back different than the front just to experiment. So the front, I tried to make it look like fish scales. And if anybody would appreciate this, it's you, Preston, Mr. Fisherman. I tried to make it look like fish scales on the front side to where it was darker going to a lighter on each scale. And then on the back side, I just did like a pinwheel pattern to see what that would look like.
Michael, do you label like or color code or something before you actually start the coloring? I mean, what if you make a mistake with one of the colors? Can you undo it or?
Well, so I will typically mark with a pencil, like a regular pencil. I'll go through and mark out where I'm going to put my outlines for like in this case, we'll call it the scales. And I'll mark those. And once I know that pattern, I did the math right, and that it's going to repeat and it's not going to end up weird, then I just go at it and I do the whole outline of the pattern, like all the black lines you see. And then after that, I'll go back and color where I'm going to color, but if you do mess up, I don't have it next to me. I usually do. There's a little X-Acto pen I have with a blade, and you could scrape the paint off, or you could scrape the ink off.
Thanks.
No, those are spectacular.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can't imagine doing it.
I know we've said it before, but honestly, you'd think, and I'm not a very patient person, which is the irony is not lost on me saying that, but I think once you do it and you just sit down and you're watching TV or whatever, and you're just kind of coloring, it's especially when Norma saying it's so hot in the garage. I'm still woodworking, but I'm sitting my reclining. So anyways.
Yeah, very nice.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that's really a disadvantage to come after Mike and show such a.
Sooner or later, we all got to do it.
That's not fair.
Yeah,
No,
well,
Steph, I love your work.
great job. And I love your photo, the way you had it better than a professional photo with your dot in the background and the colors of her, whatever she wears, look great. But
it was my niece, her little fingernails matched perfectly. And I was like, oh, hold this real quick. I'm going to take a picture.
they do, yes. So this is a piece of Leland cypress. And as a tree, I don't like the Leland cypress. It's just not a pretty tree. But the wood is awesome. Not only does it smell wonderfully like all cedars and cypresses, but the wood is surprisingly nice as well. And this piece is about, I think, what is it, 7 inches across. And I set out to turn a bowl out of it. And then when I started flattening on top, and if you go back to the other one, then I saw this beautiful branch coming off on the piece. So if I had really hollowed out the piece, I would have lost here at 5 o'clock. I would have lost most of that, or it would have gone into the bowl, but not as impressive, I think, as it is now. So I decided just ad hoc to do this differently. I'd never done this kind of form before, and have a little bowl in the middle with a rim, and then have the satin kind of like ring around it flat. And then I'd initially planned to just have it as a bowl that would be standing on the table. And what you see there was a piece at the bottom that was in the chuck. And then I thought, this is actually not bad. I could leave that and make it a real stand. So it's one piece, and I call it the candy dish because the middle is big enough for a few of the chocolate kisses and some candy. And that's what this piece is.
That's not my photo crop. That's Stefan's photo crop. That detail shot.
So I have to chime in. I love this piece, and I know you said it's a candy dish, but what I would do, me personally, is I'd have a bunch of olives in the center and then sliced meats and cheeses all around that rim. That would sell like hotcakes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know. Consider that.
Now I've made myself hungry. Good job.
And it's finished with walnut oil.
I love it. I love those grain lines. I
Nice.
think it's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Nicely done. Nice shape. I love both from the top and from the elevation view are both nicely done.
I love your lines.
You love my lines?
Yeah, the
Get a room.
shape and
Your
You
pickup
love
lines.
my- Okay.
All right.
That rim, to me, that rim makes it. If it had just gone flat and dumped, it
Yeah.
wouldn't have been the same. I think it was great.
The only thing
Thanks,
is
guys.
probably the photo. The foot looks a little weird to me, but I can't make a judgment because we don't have a full view of it. It looks like the neck at the foot might be a little big, but can't really tell from the shot.
The neck of the foot.
It doesn't. It looks like it could come in more before going to the bowl, but it's hard to judge at this angle.
Oh.
now, Norm, that's where I was saying I loved its line. So
I can't get the original here, but I know what you mean. You think maybe it should be a tighter waist, right? Or a smaller waist.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see enough of it to be sure, but that's the first impression I get when I look at it. It's like hard to tell. I want to pick it up and tip it.
I hear what you mean.
You got to put it in front
Yeah, I
of your
wish I could
face
show it,
or
but
turn off your background.
Oh man, that's too much stuff to do at one time.
yeah, I think it would be difficult to have any volume in the bowl
There you go.
to
Okay.
make it slimmer.
No, it looks fine. It's the nature of the photograph. I saw it when you held it up, and
I think making
you
that
nailed it.
narrower would turn it more into an art piece and less of a candy bowl.
Yeah, I'm seeing, all I can see is super sawdust, some prosciutto stuffed olives in there.
I haven't had dinner. Will you stop with the
some
food?
Parma cheese.
And then Steve, do you allow me to just take 1 minute to talk about my second submission that couldn't be accepted because I submitted as a
No,
PDF?
it's here.
No,
It
it's
just
in there.
took a little work.
Oh,
I had to reformat it, and
Oh.
yeah, I got better. Let's not do that again. For everyone's benefit, no PDFs, no movies. We can't do a gallery with anything but images, please.
got it. Well, I appreciate that you took the effort, you or Steve, to put it in here. It was just fun. We went for a vacation in California. I just came back a week ago. We didn't go on any vacation last year because of COVID, and I have 4 children. So it was good to get away as a whole family. And California was better than Europe this time because of COVID. And I was impressed by the trees, particularly the Monterey Cypress, if you've been to California. And you see here multiple of them. It has an awesome shape. And it's one of the cypresses. And I've worked, as you saw, with the Leland cypress. I've worked with cedars, which are from a similar family. But the tree shape is nice. So I thought, man, it would be so nice to get a piece of that and take it home for turning. So then I went on the internet and I looked at the Woodturners clubs in Santa Cruz. We were in Monterey Bay, in Santa Cruz and in Monterey, and wrote to their presidents because there was a contact us. And one of the presidents responded immediately, and you see him down on the left lower edge. Turned out he's a retired physician, so we had that in common as well. He invited me over to his workshop, showed me what he turns, which was wonderful stuff. He lives in an incredible redwood grove in a neighborhood with redwood trees. And then he gave me as a gift a piece of Monterey Cypress that he had 3 of them, of these big round ones, 18 to 19.5 inches in diameter, and said, pick one of these 3 that you want. And I did. And he gave me another piece of Monterey Cypress, a smaller one. So I was really thrilled about the contact through, again, which we all know, other Woodturners, exchange of thoughts, connecting with them, seeing how they live, where they live, meet their family, meet the workshop, and then the wood as a gift, which I thought was wonderful. To no surprise, I had to buy an extra suitcase, in a regular sized suitcase. And then had to pay obviously for the suitcase at the airline. So it was not an inexpensive purchase, but that's secondary. I have not turned this yet, but that's my story.
Well,
Did you,
just curious, are you taking applications to have a fifth child?
Here's what, please?
I said, are you taking applications to adopt a fifth child? Because I'd like to sign up.
did you get to go to the Mere Woods Forest? See all the redwoods?
I did.
It's awesome,
I
isn't
did.
it?
John Muir Wood with a coastal redwood, but also the sequoia, Kings Canyon with a giant sequoia.
Yeah.
They were too big for the chainsaw, though.
Yeah, you'd have gotten arrested.
That
too.
is one of my
Yeah.
favorite places on this planet.
Mere Woods.
Yeah, probably. Yes, they are awesome. And it's not just those trees. In California, they have the live oak, the coast live oak trees. They have a great shape. They have the arbutus or madrone trees that are the northwestern and the also in California trees. So the number of very nice trees.
Now you got to buy a bunch of Ansel Adams prints.
Yeah, but we look forward to seeing what you turn out of that piece.
I will.
Yeah.
I will show it. Yes.
All right. So Norm, there's a couple more here. Tom Doe, it should be up next.
That was the last photo that I had. That was at the end of the list.
In the album, because I'm looking at the album right now, and is it just not loading? They still have Tom Doe and Bob Edmondson pieces. And I'm looking at it on my phone. They're there.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't there a moment ago.
Yeah, no,
Sorry about
it's there's some large size files in this album, so it does take some time to load.
Can you? Oh, I got to share again because you're not seeing what I'm seeing. Sorry about that. Right, you're not seeing it.
Nope.
Oh.
You need to share.
Well, it looks good to me. I don't know what your problem is.
There you go.
Here we go.
This is Tom breaking the rules.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I'll do better in the future. These are Hickory Bowls. And I was real curious about these because when I rough turned them, they were all the consistent light colored wood. There's none of these have the heartwood in them. These came off some maybe 14-inch logs. And there was very little heartwood in the log. But when I rough turn them, they're consistent color throughout. But when they dried, they got this splotchiness in it. And I'm not quite sure why that happened. Don't know if anybody has ever seen this, or I was trying to figure out how I could avoid it.
It's hickory.
Is it? Okay.
I've seen it too. I've had it too. I don't know what it's from.
Yeah, and it wasn't anything to do with the finish because that was there prior to putting the friction polish on it.
It's often mold. It's some kind of mold.
Okay.
And just so you know, Steve may be joking, but there's nothing wrong with submitting a set of the same pieces. It's just don't try to send 5 photos.
No, yeah. And I got real fortunate with the time this tree was cut. It was cut, I think, in late November. And so that I had no issues at all with that bark staying put.
No, that's remarkable. With 3 of them, you got that bark to stay on there for all of them.
Yeah, I got more than 3, and I didn't have any trouble with any of them with the bark. There was like it's a solid on there.
Right.
I didn't want to make them too thin because I kind of wanted to show off the bark.
Right.
This is true of pecan too. The giveaway, see the brown, what is it, the cadmium layer? The brown layer right behind the bark?
Yeah.
That's golden. That has enough flex that the bark will hang on. The bigger that brownish middle section, the better
Yeah.
luck I've had with keeping bark on. Some
This-
have it, some don't.
This was, I was real afraid of the trouble I was going to get into with working with hickory, but these turn beautifully. I just made sure I had very sharp tools, and I didn't have any trouble at all.
Well,
cutting
when
it.
it's wet, it's great.
Oh, that was easy. I mean, but even when I finished it up, I didn't have any issues at all. I kind of liked turning it, but I kept my tools very sharp, and that obviously helps.
Yep.
In the bottom, one of these has feet. I'm not particularly happy with those feet. I think I could have shaped them a little bit more, but and they're kind of tall. I was experimenting with different sizes, trying to see what I liked.
Yeah, I think they're.
But
a
that's
little
the
tall,
only
too.
thing I would say is if they were a little shorter, that was
Yeah.
what I was thinking.
Yeah, more. I've done some others, and I agree with that. The others are a little bit a little shorter than these. These were some of the longest ones I've done, and I wasn't totally thrilled with the shape. I thought maybe I needed to taper them a little bit more. These were
Yeah.
kind of square.
That would have done it. That would
Yeah,
have done
I
it.
think that would have helped a lot. But it's really fun making bowls with the feet. I like that. A lot of extra work though.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If they're
Well, you
too
gotta get-
long,
you gotta
that's
get
what
really
the
fast
belt
moving
sanders
that,
are for.
moving the tool in and out as it turns.
Yeah.
And if you don't like the height, that's what belt sanders are for.
There you
Yeah,
go.
there you go. Yeah. Right.
All right.
So this set is I had this last month. I had a limb fall from an oak tree in my backyard. So I said, "Wow, what an opportunity!" So I thought I'd try some of these little pieces again. And the first one I did, it broke because I got the stem too close to the pith, and I had a very weak spot in it, and it just fell apart. So I set these up off-centered because the pith was really right in the center of this limb. So I just set them up off-centered. Got these two pieces really, they came out nice. They stayed together. I even got the bark to stay on it. And these were rather fun to do. I had enough wood for several more, but because that limb had fallen off the tree, it had a lot of rot in it, and I couldn't keep anything together on the rest of them. The wood was too far gone, so I only had about 3 pieces that were really solid. So these are like 7 inches or so tall.
Okay, Tom, now you're just showing off.
So the other thing was the stem on those was it's about 3/16 of an inch, and I was so hesitant to go any thinner because I was just afraid that it was I was pressing my luck. But they were fun and didn't take all that long. And hey, the limb fell. That's I took advantage of it. I just wish it had happened a month earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Proportions, everything, I would say you didn't want the stems to be any thinner. That looks perfect as far as proportion and shape, everything to me. That's excellent. I love
I agree.
those.
The stem is a little thicker, but so is the diameter is larger than the ones we've seen before. So I think that proportionality is very nice.
Yeah, they were fun to do. I kind of enjoyed it.
Good. All right, last one, Bob.
All right, go to the other picture first, and we'll just do a quickie review here. You might remember back in February, I had thrown this picture up and I said, what is it? I was in the middle of making these things. I ran across an article that was written by a fellow by the name of Neil Scooby, an Australian turner. Unfortunately, he left us a few years ago, but he left quite a legacy with some of the things he did, which were very innovative. And he, with a couple of other turners who I can't remember their names, created a method called inside out turning, which if you look at the picture up on the top left, it's a jig that you make and you mount blanks on that. Go to the right and you turn those. And then after you've turned them and gotten the shape that you want, you flip them 180 degrees and you turn them again. And you end up with a piece down here on the lower left. And from there, you mounted them, if you want, onto a round disc, and you can configure this thing almost infinitely to create, when you turn it, you create little holes in the pieces, which you can see up here at the very top. And basically, he developed this to create a, to resemble a seed pod from a black bean tree that grows in Australia. And he had brought this idea to the International Turning Exchange in Philadelphia back in 2006 and challenged some turners and some classmates, I guess, into doing these pod shapes. And then he challenged them to come up with a name for them. And the name they came up with was Squirts, and it stuck. So there was an article in the AAW some years ago that that's where I got this whole thing from. And I created the jig and I started making these things. And I found out you can't just make one or two or four and have them really do anything. So I just made a whole bowl full of them and created different shapes. You take that last shape and you take it to a bandsaw and just freehand it.
Well, you have to make four, right?
A lot of carving. You can do wood burning on them. You can do use your power carving tools, or you can leave them plain like the mahogany ones down at the bottom there. But I got to tell you something. After I finish those things, put them into a bowl, put them on a coffee table in the house. They're like people magnets. People come into the house and that's the first thing they go to, and they want to know what they are. I don't know what it is about them. They're fun to handle. But it's kind of a fun project, just something to play around with.
Very innovative. Yeah.
Don't ask me why, but the process is called therming.
They called it inside out turning, but there's so many different processes to this that might have therming in it as well. Yeah. So
What'd you paint those with?
Some of them were painted with milk paints, acrylics. Some of the little dots and details on there are done with just alcohol pins. I just kind of played around with a lot of different media just to see what would work.
That'd be the first thing I'd go to. I'd want to pick them up and see, just get the texture too. They're cool.
Well, they're fun to handle because they just have, they fit your hand and they've got different textures and whatnot on them. And I can see why people do like to go to them. But I'll tell you,
do they throw well?
I haven't tried that yet.
They look throwable.
Come back to you after you throw them.
You're like a boomerang.
Yeah, could be. They're Australian.
Kind of need fidget sticks too, if you know.
Yeah. You make some smaller ones, make them into good little fidget sticks. Anyway, just something fun to do. There's two articles in the AAW. I can't remember. It's a while back that I saw them. But if you looked up Neil Scooby, I'm sure you could find them if you have any interest in trying something like this. So
Very unique.
Cool.
Very hard to believe they're turned.
yeah, they are, aren't they?
Well, I believe that is it. Steve, am I correct?
You are correct, and we're right on time. appreciate everyone participating tonight and everybody who submitted or just participating in the discussion. And with that, we will see you next month for our membership meeting.